Story 1, submitted by Mark D. from Cold Creek, Ohio. Cold Creek in 1981 wasn't even a dot most people recognized. It was a bend in a two-lane road, a feed store, a Baptist church, and houses spread far enough apart that you could scream and no one would hear you unless the wind was right. My parents rented a farmhouse a mile past the creek itself, the water brown and slow like it was thinking too hard. I was 16 and sleeping in the back bedroom, the one with the slanted ceiling and the window that faced the cornfield. At night the field sounded alive. Wind slid through the stalks like hands through hair, and animals moved in ways that never quite sounded like animals. My dad said it was raccoons. He said that about everything. That night was late October. The furnace clanged on and off, and the house smelled like dust and old wood. I remember waking up because I thought someone was calling my name softly, like they didn't want to wake anyone else. I lay there listening, heart thumping, waiting for it again. Instead, I heard breathing. It wasn't inside the room. It came from right outside my window. Slow, wet, deliberate breathing, like whoever it was had been walking a long way and finally stopped to rest. I froze, staring at the glass, my own reflection pale and warped in the dark. The breathing didn't move. It didn't pace or shift. It just stayed there, steady and patient. I told myself it was a cow or a deer, something big enough to breathe loud, but the window was 6 feet off the ground. Whatever it was, its mouth was level with my face. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and listened harder than I ever had in my life. Each inhale dragged in, each exhale slid out, faintly whistling. I could hear saliva click. I could hear effort like it was choosing to breathe slow. Minutes passed, maybe more. Time stopped behaving normally. I thought about my parents asleep down the hall. I thought about how thin the glass was. I thought about how the window didn't have a lock, just a painted-over latch that never fully caught. Then it sniffed. A long, deep pull right against the glass, fogging it slightly in a half-moon shape. I watched the condensation bloom and fade. That's when I knew it was facing me, that it knew exactly where I was. I wanted to scream, but my body refused. My jaw felt glued shut. My hands were numb, curled into the blanket like claws. The breathing continued, unbothered by my fear, as if fear was expected, even enjoyed. At some point I realized the sound of the cornfield had stopped. No wind, no insects. Just the breathing and the ticking of my alarm clock, each second loud as a hammer. I don't know how long it stood there. 20 minutes, 40, an hour. My legs cramped. Tears leaked into my ears. I stared so hard my eyes burned, waiting for a shape to appear, for a face to press against the glass, for something to end the waiting. Nothing happened. Eventually I heard a soft, careful step, then another. The breathing moved slightly to the left, then faded, retreating not into the field, but toward the side of the house, toward the back door. I don't remember deciding to move. I just found myself out of bed, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. I crept to my bedroom door and opened it a crack. The hallway was dark, but I could see my parents' door, closed, peaceful, unchanged. From the kitchen I heard the breathing again, closer now, heavier. Something brushed the back door, fingertips maybe, or nails. The doorframe creaked under a gentle pressure, testing, not forcing, just learning. I stood there, 16 years old, knowing with a certainty that made me feel sick, that if I woke my parents, if I made any sound at all, it would come for me first, like it had already chosen. The pressure stopped. The breathing lingered, right on the other side of the door. I imagined it leaning down, lining up its mouth with the crack beneath the wood, listening to us sleep. Then finally it moved away. The house stayed silent, no footsteps fading, no retreat into the field, just absence, like a held breath finally released. I didn't sleep again until morning. When the sun came up, I checked outside with my dad. There were no footprints, no marks, just damp earth and the impression that something very heavy had stood there for a long time. We moved the following spring. I never told my parents why. But sometimes, even now, when the night is quiet and the air feels too close, I remember that breathing, steady and patient, and I wonder if it's still standing somewhere, listening, waiting for the sound of me waking up. Story 2, submitted by Elaine R. from Cold Creek, Ohio. In 1981, my husband and I lived on a stretch of dirt road the county never bothered to name. Everyone just called it past Miller's Field, even though Mr. Miller had been dead for years and his land sat empty, swallowed by weeds and a collapsing barn. Our house was the only one with a light you could see at night. I was 7 months pregnant that winter. Thomas worked nights at the paper mill, leaving at dusk and coming home just before dawn, smelling like oil and pulp. I hated being alone, but we needed the money, and Cold Creek didn't offer choices. You took what you could get and pretended it was enough. That night the cold came early, the kind that made the walls pop and the floorboards complain. I locked every door out of habit, even though no one ever came out that far unless they meant to. I turned the TV low and sat on the couch, knitting something I'd probably never finish. Around 10, the dog started growling. We had a mutt named Pepper, old and gentle, more interested in sleeping than guarding anything. I'd never heard that sound from her before. It wasn't loud, just a low, steady vibration in her chest, aimed toward the front door. "Stop it," I whispered, my hand resting on my belly. The baby shifted, a slow roll that made me wince. Pepper didn't stop. She stood, hackles raised, staring at the door like it had offended her. Then someone knocked. It wasn't the sharp rap of knuckles. It was dull, careful. 3 slow taps, spaced out like whoever did it wanted to be polite. I checked the clock. 10:17. Too late for neighbors. Too early for Thomas. "Who is it?" I called, hating how thin my voice sounded. No answer. Pepper barked once, sharp and panicked, then fell silent. She backed away from the door, tail tucked, eyes wide. I'd never seen her afraid. The knock came again, same rhythm, same restraint. I stood there, heart pounding, telling myself it was a lost driver, someone needing help, but the road didn't lead anywhere. You had to choose it on purpose. "I can't open the door," I said, louder this time. "My husband's not home." A pause, long enough that I wondered if they'd left. Then a voice, low and careful, came through the wood. "I know." It wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It sounded almost tired, like stating a fact. My skin prickled. "What do you want?" Another pause. I imagined someone standing there, head tilted, deciding what to say. "I just need to come in for a minute." Pepper whimpered behind me. "No," I said. "You need to leave." The doorknob turned. Not hard, not forcing. Just enough to let me hear the latch rattle, to let me know they were touching it, testing it. "I can hear your dog," the voice said. "She's old." I hadn't told anyone that. My hands shook so badly I had to brace them against the wall. "I have a gun," I lied. "We didn't. Thomas didn't believe in them." "That's all right," the voice replied. "I don't mind." Something shifted on the porch. A scrape, like a foot repositioning. Then a sound I still can't explain. A slow inhale, drawn out and wet, right against the door, as if they were smelling the air inside. I gagged. "I can hear your heart," the voice said softly. "It's working too hard." I backed away, pulling Pepper with me toward the hallway. My belly felt tight, wrong. Panic pressed in from all sides. I thought about the bedroom window, about locking myself in the bathroom, about how thin the walls were. The knocking stopped. For a moment, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard movement, not retreating, but circling. Slow footsteps across the porch. A pause by the front window, the faint squeak of the screen as fingers brushed it. "Please go," I whispered, though I don't know who I was talking to anymore. The footsteps continued around the side of the house, toward the back. I realized with a sick clarity that Thomas always forgot to lock the rear door when he left for work. I'd teased him about it, told him one day it would matter. The handle turned. I screamed then. I couldn't help it. I screamed until my throat burned, until my vision sparkled. Pepper barked, frantic, throwing herself at the hallway door as if she could block the sound. The handle stopped moving. From the other side of the house, the voice spoke again, muffled but clear. "Not tonight," it said, almost regretful. "You're too loud." Footsteps retreated. The porch creaked. The cold pressed back in. Thomas came home at 5:42 a.m. He found me on the kitchen floor, shaking, Pepper curled against my chest. I tried to explain. He checked outside, found nothing, No footprints, no marks, just frost and silence. Our daughter was born 2 weeks early. We moved out of Cold Creek before she could walk. But sometimes late at night, when she can't sleep and her heart races under my hand, I think about that voice knowing things it shouldn't, and I wonder if it ever really left, or if it's just learned to wait until I'm quiet again. Story 3, submitted by Harold Hal M. from Cold Creek, Ohio. I was a volunteer firefighter in Cold Creek back then. That sounds more official than it was. We had a rusted engine, a siren that worked when it felt like it, and a phone tree that depended on who was sober enough to drive. Most calls were brush fires or barns struck by lightning. Nothing you'd call dangerous if you were careful. The night I quit, we were called out for a missing person. It was early November of 1981, just after harvest. A man named Everett Cole hadn't come home from checking his traps along the creek. Everett was the kind of man who didn't get lost. He'd lived there his whole life. If he was late, something was wrong. 5 of us met at the station. No sheriff, no state help, just flashlights, radios that hissed more than they spoke, and the understanding that we'd be out there a while. The moon was thin and sharp, like it could cut you if you looked too long. We followed the creek north, boots sinking into mud that smelled rotten and sweet. The woods pressed in tight there, trees bent low, branches clawing at our jackets. Every sound felt close, amplified. I kept thinking I heard footsteps just out of sync with ours. About half a mile in, we found Everett's truck. The driver's door was open. The engine was cold. His flashlight lay in the mud, still on, beam pointing into the water. The traps he'd checked were neatly reset. That's what bothered me most. Whatever interrupted him hadn't caused panic. He'd taken his time. We spread out, calling his name. Our voices died quickly, swallowed by trees and fog rolling in off the creek. That fog moved strangely, not drifting, gathering. I was the one who found the footprints. They started at the water's edge, bare feet, big ones, too big to be Everett's. They pressed deep into the mud, as if the person who made them weighed more than they should have. The stride was wrong, too far apart, like something learning how to walk properly. I radioed it in, got static and a half-formed curse from someone back near the truck. The footprints led into the woods. Against every instinct I had, I followed them. The beam of my flashlight caught bark stripped clean from tree trunks, long vertical marks like something had scraped itself passing through. The air smelled metallic, like old blood and wet pennies. That's when I heard breathing. It came from everywhere and nowhere, slow and deliberate, timed between my steps, like it didn't want me to hear it too clearly. My chest tightened. I stopped moving. The breathing stopped too. "Everett," I called, knowing it wasn't him. The breathing resumed, closer now. I swung my light toward it. The beam caught a shape between the trees. Tall. Too tall. It stood hunched, its back rising and falling with each breath. I couldn't see its face, just a pale suggestion of skin stretched wrong over bone. Its arms hung low, fingers nearly brushing the ground. It didn't move when the light hit it. I realized then that it wasn't hiding. It had never been hiding. It was waiting for me to notice it. My radio crackled, someone shouting my name, distorted and far away. The sound seemed to irritate the thing. Its head tilted, jerking slightly, like a bird listening for worms underground. It took one step toward me. The ground shook. Mud sucked at its foot when it lifted it again, making a wet, tearing sound. I backed up, heart slamming so hard I thought I might pass out. I couldn't scream, couldn't run. Every lesson I'd ever learned drained out of me. Then it spoke. Not words, not really. Just a low vibration that rattled in my chest like it was humming directly into my bones. The sound carried a pressure with it, a sense of being seen all the way through. I smelled Everett then, his aftershave, his sweat. Fresh. Something moved behind the creature, a darker shape dragged along the ground. I realized with a jolt of horror that it was Everett, or what was left of him, being pulled by one ankle like an afterthought. I don't remember turning around. I remember running. Branches tore at my face. Roots tripped me. Behind me, I heard the breathing speed up, excited now, and the heavy, deliberate steps following, not chasing, just keeping pace. The radio in my hand screamed with voices. panic bleeding through static. Someone else had seen it. Someone else was crying. Then as suddenly as it had begun, the sound stopped. I burst out of the trees into the clearing by the truck, collapsing in the mud. The others were there, pale and shaking, all talking at once. No one went back in. We didn't need to agree. We all knew. Everett was never officially found. The report said probable drowning. That's what the county preferred. Clean words, easy words. I turned in my gear the next day, told them I couldn't do it anymore. No one argued. I still dream about the way it stood there, breathing, letting me look my fill, like it wanted to be remembered. And the worst part is knowing, with a certainty that wakes me up sweating, that if the radio hadn't crackled when it did, it would have let me walk closer, just to see how much more I was willing to notice before it decided to keep me too. Story 4, submitted by June L. from Cold Creek, Ohio. I was born in Cold Creek and thought I'd die there. Most of us did. The town didn't change much, and neither did the people. You married someone you went to school with, worked land or machinery, and learned early which questions not to ask. In 1981, I was a night nurse at the small county hospital 20 minutes away. Cold Creek didn't have its own. If something bad happened, you drove. I worked the late shift because it paid a little more and because I couldn't sleep well anyway. Not after what happened to my brother. Tommy drowned in the creek when we were kids. At least that's what everyone said. But I'd seen the marks on his legs at the funeral. Bruises shaped like hands. Big hands. On my drive home one night in December, the road iced over. Black ice, invisible until you were already sliding. My car fishtailed and ended up in the ditch, nose down, engine stalled. The world went quiet except for the ticking of cooling metal. I sat there a moment, hands tight on the wheel, breathing fog onto the windshield. No houses nearby, no lights, just fields and trees and the creek somewhere beyond them. Then I saw someone standing on the road. At first I thought I was dizzy, but the shape didn't fade, tall, still, right where my headlights cut off into darkness. They hadn't been there before, I was sure of it. I rolled the window down an inch. Hello? My voice sounded strange in the open air. The figure didn't move. The light didn't seem to touch it properly, like it was swallowing the beams instead of reflecting them. "I've had an accident," I said. "Can you help?" It took a step forward. I saw then that it wasn't wearing shoes. Its feet were bare, pale against the dark asphalt. Too long. The knees bent the wrong way, just slightly, like it had copied the idea of legs without fully understanding them. I locked the doors. The thing stopped a few feet from my car. I could hear it breathing now. Slow, familiar. The same sound I'd heard outside our house when Tommy was still alive, the night before he disappeared. A sound I'd trained myself to forget. It leaned down until its face was level with my window. I couldn't see details, just the suggestion of features, as if my mind refused to finish drawing them. "You grew up," it said. The voice was wrong, not deep or monstrous, just stretched, like an old recording played at the wrong speed. My mouth went dry. "You knew my brother." A pause. The breathing deepened. He knew me. Something brushed the glass. Not a hand. More like knuckles or joints, pressed experimentally, leaving a faint smear as if the skin was damp. "You stayed," it continued. "Most leave." "I'm leaving," I whispered. "As soon as I can." It made a sound that might have been amusement. They all think that. The engine turned over then, sudden and loud. I don't remember trying the key again, but the car roared to life like it had been waiting for that moment. The headlights flared, and for a split second, I saw the thing clearly reflected in the glass. It was smiling, not with its mouth, but with its posture, with the way it leaned back, satisfied, as if it had confirmed something important. I slammed the gas and tore out of the ditch, tires screaming. I didn't look back. I drove all the way home shaking, every shadow on the road feeling like it might step out in front of me. The next week I put my house up for sale, took a job in the city, told myself I was done with Cold Creek. But sometimes, late at night in my apartment, when traffic noise dies down and the air feels too still, I hear that breathing again, slow and patient, and I know it remembers me, because I was never supposed to leave, and it's still standing out there, counting the ones who do.